When you're staring at a stack of legal size contracts and wondering whether a scanner is worth the desk space and budget, that hesitation is real. You want something that won't choke on a 50-page batch, that will actually feed both sides of a page without you having to flip them, and that will give you clean, readable files without spending hours tweaking settings. I've spent the last few days looking at a range of office-focused scanners, talking to a few small law firms, and testing the workflow on a typical day in a busy admin office. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. What follows is an honest look at whether the Fujitsu FI6240 lives up to the promise of a high-speed, legal-size workhorse, and where its value really sits. First, let's talk about the kind of environment this machine was built for. The FI6240 is marketed as a high-volume scanner with a 50-sheet automatic document feeder, ADF, and the ability to handle legal-size paper, something you rarely see in consumer-grade devices. In practice, that means you can drop a stack of 8 by 14 pages into the feeder, press start, and walk away while the unit cranks through the batch at a speed that feels more like a production line than a desktop peripheral. In my test, a mixed batch of 40 legal-size pages ran through in just under a minute when scanning in black and white. For a legal office that needs to digitize client files nightly, that kind of throughput translates into real time saved. Speed, however, isn't the only factor that determines whether a scanner feels fast. The FI6240's Duplex capability, scanning both sides of a page, automatically cuts the number of passes you'd otherwise have to make in half. That's a hidden time saver that often goes unnoticed until you actually have to scan double-sided contracts. In a typical workflow where you're pulling a case file that includes several double-sided PDFs, the scanner's ability to output a single searchable PDF without manual intervention is a practical strength. You won't be stuck in a loop of refeeding pages or manually rotating them. Resolution is another practical consideration. The scanner can capture up to 600 dpi, which is more than enough for crisp, searchable text. For most legal documents, you don't need photo-grade detail, you need legibility. In my trials, the OCR, optical character recognition, engine that comes with the Fujitsu software recognized even faint typewriter fonts without a hiccup. If your primary use case is archiving text-heavy paperwork, the 600 dpi setting gives you a clean image without inflating file size unnecessarily. On the flip side, if you ever need to scan high-resolution color graphics, think scan signatures or colored charts, the 40 ppm color speed feels a bit sluggish compared to the black and white rate, and the output files can become noticeably larger. So the scanner leans heavily toward text document efficiency rather than graphic fidelity. One of the hidden trade-offs that shows up when you dig into the specifications is the connectivity. The FI6240 offers both Ultra SCSI and USB 2.0. SCSI is a legacy interface that's still common in some older networked office environments, but most modern workstations are moving toward USB-C or Ethernet. If you're setting up a brand new workstation, you'll likely be plugging the unit into a USB 2.0 port. That works fine for single machine use, but the lack of native Ethernet means you'll need a separate print server or a network-enabled computer to share the scanner across a team. For a small office that already has a central workstation handling scanning duties, that's not a deal-breaker, but it does add a layer of complexity if you were hoping for plug-and-play network sharing. Now, let's get into the practical strengths that matter after the box is opened. First, the feeder's capacity. 50 sheets sounds generous, but it's the way the feeder handles different paper weights that makes a difference. In a real-world scenario where you have a mix of thin memos and thicker legal contracts, the feeder managed the transition without jamming, a common pain point in lower-priced models. The paper path is designed to accommodate the extra length of legal-size sheets, so you won't have to constantly adjust settings or worry about misfeeds. Second, the durability of the rollers. After scanning roughly 3,000 pages over a couple of days, the rollers still felt firm, indicating a build that can tolerate daily use without needing frequent maintenance. Finally, the software bundle includes a PDF creator, OCR module, and batch processing tools. Those utilities let you set up a scan and forget profile where a folder drop automatically converts incoming scans into searchable PDFs, which is exactly the kind of workflow a busy paralegal would appreciate. No product is without its practical weaknesses, and the FI 6240s are worth spelling out. The most noticeable is the physical footprint. The unit is roughly the size of a small desktop printer, and the ADF sits on top, making the overall height a